This week is a really exciting week for my twins and me. My kids are actually going to attend their eighth grade sneaker ball. Such a cute name, right? And they both have dates. Now, I think for a parent, having a child have a date for the first time is frankly nerve-wracking. Times now, both going through the same thing. But more importantly, as an Indian mom, this concept can be completely devastating. And I wanted to share the context of why that is and how my upbringing was completely different than how I am raising my children today. During high school, during homecoming, I actually had connected the summer before with a boy that I had had a crush on as a little girl. By 16, I had never had a boyfriend. I had never dated anybody. Frankly, I thought the boys in my school were completely immature. I went to a magnet high school where everybody was some kind of dork and nerd, including myself. And the boys, to me, frankly, were unattractive. And I was going through my own physical metamorphosis, right? So I had reconnected with this boy in high school. And this is the days where you had letters in the mail. We really didn't have internet. We didn't have email. And basically this boy had gotten my phone number from someone and had started calling my house after school. And during this time, there was a couple of hours where I would be home alone before my parents would come home, and I would start talking to him, and he would call me, through getting calling cards. And I was in the receiving end of those phone calls, which was really flattering. I had a crush on this boy. I ended up asking him to homecoming, and I was really excited. I was excited about the idea of seeing him and holding him and getting my first kiss from a boy that I really liked and all the things. And maybe just a few weeks before homecoming, my mom came home, caught me on the phone with this boy. She got information out of me that I had asked him to homecoming in a couple of weeks. And at that point, she basically told me that if I met the boy, if he came over to homecoming, she would ground me for an eternity. Now, remember, I am at this point a junior high school. All of my friends have dates. All of my friends have plans. We all had made reservations to a nice restaurant. We'd gotten our homecoming dresses. We all had plans to have this moment together, which is sort of a big deal as a high school kid. And with my mom telling me, threatening me, I couldn't see him, nor could I even go to homecoming. It was completely devastating. Reluctantly, I ended up canceling my date and told the boy that I was no longer to see him, talk to him, and he couldn't be a part of my life anymore. And I remember at that point, I had this interesting relationship with my mom where I thought she was my friend. I had thought she was my confidant. And when she'd asked me what was happening, I told her very openly about what was happening, my excitement about the date. I remember just feeling so betrayed in that time. And I felt like, oh my God, I can't trust her. And needless to say, the same scenario, almost exactly the same scenario played out just a few years into the future. In college now, with a boy that I was in a relationship with, a Caucasian boy. And again, I was told that if I continued to see him, that I would be grounded, except this time I was independent. This time I had a car. This time I was already living off campus, and my mom didn't have the same control over me, and I dated him anyway. There's just huge cultural nuances and huge differences in American culture and Indian culture. And what's crazy is last week I was on a networking call with someone, a Caucasian man that I connected with for real estate. And he had mentioned that he had read some of my LinkedIn posts about my podcast and asked me about some questions, some nuances about my faith, about my culture, about dating. And I think the question that he asked me is it true, Karishma, that someone needs to be able to break free of the cultural and lineage and generational grip to really be free? At which point I said without hesitation, absolutely. And I wanted to kind of talk about some of these cultural lineage generational patterns that I've noticed in my journey that I'm hoping that I get to break free today with my own journey and inevitably break free for my daughter and her future daughters and lineage. So I remember just a few years ago, my friends that were Indian, most of them had boyfriends. Most of them were hiding behind their parents' backs. We were the generation that would wear socially, culturally accepted clothing when leaving the house, packing small outfits, small skirts, even tank tops into our backpacks and going out in front of mom and dad looking completely conservative or socially acceptable to them, changing in a bathroom somewhere and heading out to the clubs a few hours later. And this is the generation that I was raised in. This is the culture that I was raised in, where my friends were seemingly doing all the things our Caucasian friends were doing, but behind our parents' back. A few years ago, I felt completely betrayed by my mom. And I remember just feeling this soul crushing realization that I couldn't tell my mom this thing. And then again, realizing that in order for me to be safe at home, safe from the grounding, safe from the overprotection, safe from even that greater hawk side that my mom had on me, especially as the older one, as the daughter, I would have to pull back and go back into the good girl role in order to be safe and to be able to navigate through the rules of my family. And when I look back at all of this, and it's so interesting because here I am and I'm the mom now. On Thursday last week, today's Monday, my daughter tells my son out loud, I just found out from one of my friends that you have a date to the sneaker ball and you asked such and such girl out. And my son was very shy about it. He almost acted like that wasn't true. And when I asked him if it was true, he goes, I guess. We're going as friends. And I found him sort of retracting and holding back. At which point, this whole situation with my mom and my homecoming came into my awareness. And I was like, oh my God, if I don't create this place of safety with my children around boys and dating and girls and dating, I'm going to lose them. And the truth is that in my generation, we did it anyway, behind our parents' back. In today's generation, these kids have cell phones and easier access to everybody and social media and all the things that we didn't have until way, way later in life. And the truth is they're going to do it anyway. How can I create a space of safety for my children so that a foundation of trust can be there in a really deep way? At which point I proceeded to share with my children that I really wanted to learn about their dates. I asked my son, tell me about the girl. Is she a friend? What are you going to wear? Are you going to bring flowers? I was asking him all these questions that he didn't even know the answers to. And he was like, wait, what? Flowers? What? Outfit? Like he didn't know. And I was like, hey, Ryan, which is his name, if you tell me what's going on, I can guide you because I've been to homecoming, I've been to dances, and I can just help you like show up as an amazing date and you can have an amazing experience with this girl that you really like. And she will remember her first dance as something extraordinary. And needless to say, it took about 5 hours for him to come around. He said, Mom, I'm going to tell you about her before I go to bed. Bite my tongue, lean back, let him finally conjure up the courage to tell me. And I think he was just terrified because he's a boy and he's 13 and he's like, oh my God, how do I have this conversation with my mom? At which point, right before bed, it was so cute. He closed the door. He laid on his tummy, hands underneath his elbow, telling me about the girl, telling me about her personality, telling me about the date, telling me about what she's wearing and what he's wearing. And Mom, can you help me pick a shirt? And what am I supposed to do? And all these things. And we started just having this amazing connection about this girl that he really liked that he'd never shared with me before. And for me, this, what's happening in real life, is actually me breaking the cycle. Because the truth is, in my culture, we operated with such great fear. When I look at my parents and their behaviors and the way they acted around boys and dating and girls and dating, there was the premise of all of it was fear-based. It was fear-based of like, what if the boy has control over you, in my case? What if having a boyfriend makes you have bad grades because now you can't focus? What if having a boyfriend means you don't finish high school and college and get your education? What if having a boyfriend means that you get pregnant. And even though those words were never said out loud, I'm certain the energy of fear was underneath everything. And the truth is, my ex-husband, who is just a few years older than me, 5 years older than me, he had the almost exact same experience, except he was the older boy. And again, that same fear, not being able to date, not being able to talk about things. In fact, for him, he actually had to get engaged. I'm not making this up, to date his girlfriend. My ex-husband was actually engaged before me, and they never lived together. They never got married in that traditional way. But in order to date her, he had to get engaged to her in order for her parents to give her permission to even date him. So he had to actually get engaged to his girlfriend in order to even be able to date her. And it sounds super bizarre, but that's the culture and that's the lineage. And those are the patterns that are there. And they're so deeply entrenched in fear, in hiding, in judgment. And there was no capacity for our parents to receive the idea of us having boyfriends and girlfriends. And where I'm going with this is, for me, there's been such a leaning into my fears. There's been such a leaning into my insecurities as a mom. My insecurities as, oh my God, is my having this open policy? Am I setting my kids up for failure? Am I doing something wrong? And I'm trying to step back into that observer mode going, how amazing is it that I get to create different rules for my children? How amazing for me to have this connection and communication with my children where we can go from me, who wasn't allowed to date, wasn't allowed to talk about boys, definitely wasn't able to bring boys into my home. The first man I brought in front of my parents was my would-be husband, my ex-husband. And the truth is, even though I was raised as an American woman, and I thought I would never date my father, never date that culture, that traditional man, I ended up dating exactly that, because that need to fit in, to belong, to be safe in my family, to be able to bring a man in front of my family that would approve of me and approve of him, that was more important than how I really felt deep inside. And the reason I want to share that is because I know there are moms out there that are minority moms, that are single moms out there that wonder about the same thing. And I know how you feel. I know how scary it is to navigate this unknown. And I think with children, it's all a big fat unknown. And you're always worried that you're going to mess it up or do it wrong. But the more I lean into my own fears, my own insecurities, and tell myself, Karishma, it's okay to be scared. But isn't it more beautiful for you to resolve your own fears from deep inside and create a beautiful landscape for your children on the outside? Isn't that more important than anything else? And the greater that I create this internal connection within myself, now I can create this beautiful place of safety where it's okay for my children to be themselves, where it's okay for my children to express who they really are at home, where they can ask me things like, Mom, what color rose should I bring this girl tomorrow? Mom, what should I wear? Mom, I want to look nice and I want to make sure I match her dress. What tie should I pick? And these are the conversations I've gotten to enjoy these last few days alone as we prepare for the sneaker ball tomorrow. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for my journey. I'm so grateful for finally breaking free of my own lineage, trauma, and fear mongering, and just hiding behind safe doors. I want my daughter to stand proud, to know that she's enough, to know that she's got what it takes, to know that she doesn't have to wear those skanky clothes in order to get a boy's attention. I want my daughter to know I don't have to have a second outfit that are socially acceptable for my friends, but then a second outfit for my mom to approve of. I don't want my daughter to live in these double standards that I felt I had to live in my entire life. And for me, I suppose that's the prize. That's the beauty. That's the grace. That's the evidence that all this deep inner work of deep self-acceptance, deep allowing, deep advocating for myself, deep leaning into my own fears and insecurities, maybe that's the point of all of it, where living your legacy isn't just about something for the future. It's seeing the evidence, being blessed enough to see the evidence in front of you every single day. Thank you for listening. I'm so grateful to be here today. Bye.